Hey Ethiopians, my name is Abaw and I'm an Ethiopian. I've been following Ethiopian politics for a while now and I wanted to shed some lights in what's going on in my country. So, yes, we Ethiopians are fighting a war and it's been going on for the last 10 or 11 months now. But this is not a civil war. This is not an ethnic war nor a religious war. It's not even a war because of a political disagreement. We Ethiopians call this war a war for the survival of our nation. That's because it is. You see, a terrorist group named TPLF is terrorizing the country in a bid to try to overthrow the democratically elected government of Ethiopia. The TPLF, abbreviated for Tigray People's Liberation Front, is a US designated terrorist group from its inception. It's been in Ethiopian politics for more than 48 years now. You see, for 17 years, they've been fighting Ethiopian people as rebel terrorists, and another 27 years ruling Ethiopia with an iron fist. Every Ethiopian detested them, and they hated every Ethiopian in return. They were dictators. They were fascists, basically. They robbed the country of more than $30 billion of wealth in their 27 years reign. I don't call it that ruling, I call it that robbing the country. Any dissent, any protest against their regime, they send the Ethiopian army to squash it. Ethiopian people just fled the country. Millions of Ethiopians became political refugees because of them. The country became one of the most poorest countries in the entire world because of it. You see, after 27 years of ruling, suddenly a popular uprising came in and swept them out of their palace. It was sudden. It was swift. They didn't even have time to pack up their bags. For real. They went straight to the desert. So, Ethiopians knew these terrorists very well, so they did a democratic election and voted their new prime minister into the palace and sent it to the palace. This infuriated these terrorists. We call them the fascist juntas. They were mad. How dare Ethiopians exercise their democratic right? Democracy. So they started plotting to overthrow the Ethiopian government. They began allying themselves with enemies of Ethiopia far and close like. So they waited. So this all happened like 3 years ago. They lost their power. So last year, something happened, something big. There was a swarm of locusts in East Africa. Huge locusts, like an entire locust infestation that starts from Somalia and entered into eastern Ethiopia straight to northern Ethiopia. And this locusts ate everything in their way. Anything that's cropped, vegetation, plants, anything that is green and grass, they destroyed everything. But when they reached northern Ethiopia, the Ethiopian army started fighting them because they are so long. They're about 20 to 30 miles long, these locusts. So while the Ethiopian army was fighting these locusts, they eventually destroyed them together with the Tigrayan people. You know what the TPLF was doing? They were planning to take over they overran the Ethiopian army's northern command. They took over the army's bases and the arms depots and stole about almost 80% of the weapons. Mind you, this is a modern army. They stole guns, ammunitions, heavy artillery, tanks, machine guns, whatever you call it. About 80% of the army's weapons, the Northern Command's army, and they fled to the desert. The Ethiopian army tried to recover some of the weapons, but it was impossible. The desert was so big, so vast. So they regrouped again. This happened last year. They regrouped again after attacking the Ethiopian army. This is the second time of their betrayal. So they regrouped again, amassed their supporters, and started fighting the Ethiopian army. This army was already tired, already demoralized by what happened to their army by this fascist TPLFs. So they took over the Tigray region, the northern Ethiopian people. They stopped every work in there completely. No public offices, no private sector jobs, No universities, no colleges, not even elementary schools were open. No markets, no trades were going on. They started arming the people of Tigray and their supporters, especially most of them are from the northern people, so they armored them with start from children to the adults. They gave them weapons from AK-47 to machine gun, artillery, like Uzis. I don't even know the weapons they already have. They stole from the Ethiopian army. So they declared war on the rest of the Ethiopian people. The first victims were the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions. They basically invaded them like Vikings from like the 8th century or 10th century Scandinavian fighters, you know? But instead of using swords and spears and shields, they used modern warfare, human waves, literally sending armies of people against the neighboring Ethiopia, Amhara and Afar region in a bid to overthrow the Ethiopian government. They displaced millions of Ethiopians. They have children, families, like people, elder peoples. They literally started indiscriminately just firing at them. They destroyed their cities. They burned down the mosques, the churches. I mean, nothing was left. Not even the cattle and the crops of the farmers. They killed whatever they can of the cattle so the farmers couldn't farm. They burned down their plants. They looted millions of dollars of artifacts, ancient Ethiopian artifacts. They were basically just on a rampage, trying to go to reach the capital city by force. They insulted every Ethiopian. They threatened to break up the country unless they wanted to come to power again for the second time. Guess what happened? The Ethiopian people realized what's going on, so they started fighting back. I mean, these terrorist groups, mind you, were armed with the most modern weapons they stole from the Ethiopian army. They started indiscriminately shelling cities, destroying entire villages. People would basically have nowhere to go. They started fleeing wherever the road takes them. Mind you, millions of Ethiopians displaced in town halls, in schools, in makeshift shelters, everywhere, with only their small bags of clothes. Some of them didn't even have time to gather their belongings. I mean, their entire livelihood, their entire life working hard, gone. Now think about this. From where the TPLF is and where the palace is, there are like thousands of miles of terrains and highlands. And in between them, there are like millions of Ethiopians from different ethnicities, religions, and cultures, just living in peace and harmony. But mainly, they were like the Amhara and the Oromo peoples. Now, these are the most powerful warriors in Africa. They have been seriously, they've been guarding the nation for like hundreds of years. Like foreign and domestic enemies. They've been fighting together, and you try to go through their city like what you did in those cities would be like a death sentence. It would be a suicide. It would be like crawling in a koala file. You would have to drop bodies after bodies just for one. They would have to drop bodies after bodies just for one of them to walk past through. It's a suicide. You see? But these terrorist groups of TPLF, they have been emboldened by the most powerful, countries and institutions, enemies of Ethiopia. So they don't care. They don't care how many soldiers they lose. They don't care how many civilians they kill or injure. They don't care what destruction of billions of properties of destruction they brought. All they wanted it to get to the palace for the second time. The only thing the TPLF and their supporters see is what's in the palace. What's in the palace is the money. That's it. The dollars, the cash. You see, for 27 years, they have nothing to do other than rob the country. I mean, $30 billion is not easy. So so you fight for a couple of years as a rebel, and you enter the Ethiopian palace, and you're gonna keep robbing. They wanna keep robbing for another 27 years. For most Ethiopians, this is a slavery. I mean, Ethiopians have been utterly humiliated by these people. So the only thing left for the Ethiopians right now is their country. That's the only thing they could not destroy. That's the only thing they could not win. So you see, fascist TPLF's only purpose is to get to the palace and rule over Ethiopia for another 20-30 years. Well, Ethiopians are not having it. The Ethiopian army started recruiting many thousands of Ethiopians trying to fight this terrorist group. It's simply, like I said earlier, it's a war for the survival of our nation. That's basically Ethiopia or them. They've spoken it loudly for everyone to hear. Ethiopians have gotten tired of their it became a slogan right now. We want the power, or we want to break up this country. That's it. There is no other negotiation or nothing. I mean, this is happening right now. So Ethiopians, there is only one option you have. We have known this terrorist TPLF group for more than 48 years now. We have known them very well that the only way to defeat them is in the battlefield. You know that as well as I do. So, whatever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever situation you're in, you have to make your country a priority now. Fight while you're working. Work while you're fighting. This is basically the second ADWA for most of us, for even a lot of Ethiopians. If we don't fight today, if we don't stand for our country today, we will not have a country to go back to. We will not have a home to come for, to go to. Nothing will be left if these terrorist groups again hold power in Ethiopian past. I promise you. Whatever sacrifices we have to make, we have to fight this terrorist group. So they've entered deep into the Ethiopian territory and scattered their armies, their forces all around the country that they are now, they're trapped. They have nowhere to go now. You see, as the saying goes, it gets darker before the dawn, So whatever you hear stories and things you hear out of Ethiopia, the end is coming now. The end is near. This terrorist group will be hunted down from every street, every corner, the valleys and deserts to the highest mountains of Africa. There will be no negotiations or no mercy for them. Surrender or meet your fate. After 48 years in Ethiopian politics, after 48 years of terrorizing East African nations, I think it's time we say enough is enough. We cannot allow our children and grandchildren to face these hordes of fucking evil people. The TPLF. We have to fight however we can. So I'm asking you Ethiopians and friends of Ethiopia to stand by the Ethiopian army and its people. It's the most crucial time in our history. As far as I remember, we have never seen or faced an enemy like this, at least in my lifetime. So it's important that we stand together. It's important that we stood aside our differences and make allies with our friends and peoples and institutions around the world. So make your voice heard. Fight for your country's dignity and honor and freedom, because that's the only thing left for us now. So yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate you. Ethiopia will prevail. We shall win, and we will win this war. Thank you.